Students, today we are going to take chapter 1 of history class 10, that is making of nationalism in Europe. So we will find out today with the part 2 experience. What we are going to share in this part is about the Habsburg Empire. Habsburg Empire was a very unique kind of empire here in Europe. So it consisted of different type of areas, and the people were also distinct from one another. They spoke different dialect and lived in different geographical area. So nothing was common between the people, and to make nationalism spread among this much kind of diverse empire was very difficult thing. And the only common thing binding people upon this different diverse group of people was the common allegiance to the emperor. Let's find out what was this Habsburg Empire. The Habsburg Empire ruled over Austria-Hungary was a patchwork of many different areas and regions. The first area was the Alpine region, which included Tyrol, Austria or Sudetenland. And here the Bohemia and the aristocracy here was predominantly German speaking. The Hungary, half of the population spoke Magyar. Magyar is a Russian language, and other half spoke a variety of dialect. Galicia, the aristocracy spoke Polish. Polish is the language of Poland, so it is called as a Polish. So beside these three dominant groups of the Alpine regions and the Galicia and the Hungary, there were a vast subject of the peasant groups who were known as Bohemians and Slovaks in the north, Slovens in Carniola, Croats in the south, and Romans to east in Transylvania. So there was a lot of difference. Somebody spoke Polish, somebody spoke Magyar, somebody spoke Italian language, somebody spoke Polish language. So there was a lot of ethnicity and lot of diversity among these people. And geographically also they were very much scattered. They were not living in a completely unison in a single piece of land. They were quite different and distinct from one another. The only tie binding to this diverse group of people was the common allegiance to the emperor, and nothing was different. Nothing was similar within this diverse group of people. Next, we will move to the landed aristocracy. Landed aristocracy simply means the landlord class of Europe. So they were having a different set of features. Let's find out what were the features of the landed aristocracy. So they were a very small class of population. There was a small group of population here. They spoke French for the purpose of diplomacy. They had townhouses as well as they had a vast estate in the countryside, and they were interconnected with marital ties. This small group was interconnected with marital ties or marriage ties with one another. This group was very small and dominant group in Europe. Next, we will begin with the coming of the new class. Apart from the first, second, and third class in third estate, there were the another coming of the different community, that was the working class population or the middle class population. Middle class became a popular idea from the Industrial Revolution. So from the Industrial Revolution, there was a new group of people who were educated also, and they had money. So they were now responsible for taking off the revolution of democracy further or ahead. So middle classes had earned or prospered through overseas external trade, and they had gained a quite a income, and they were quite prosperous. And now they began arguing with the idea that why should the king should have absolute power, and why should he dictate upon us? Why not all the common people have the control or the grip over the power? This was the one of the main question of the middle classes or the upper middle classes. This was the main question. They were also referred as the liberal middle classes because the mind were liberated. Next, we will come to the liberalism and nationalism. So what does the term liberalism means? Liberalism means freedom. Okay, so freedom of the individual, equality of all before the law. Politically, it emphasized the concept of government by consent. So after the French nationalism or the French Revolution, the idea of liberalism gained quite a popularity, and it asked for the end of the clerical privileges, end of autocracy and constitution, and a representative government, end of clerical privileges. Clergy is are the people or the group of people associated with the church. At that point of time was also very dominant, and it used to exploit people and also used to generate revenues through taxes. So now the middle classes were envisaging that the church shouldn't have a power of authority, and also not the autocratic monarchy should be henceforth be constituting the power. they should be taken away or given the status of constitutional monarchy. These were the main ideas, or these were the main demands of the liberal middle classes who had gained popularity after the industrial revolution. So the main idea behind the universal suffrage was the people of the liberal middle classes. Suffrage means right of vote to all. Right to vote to all. This suffrage movement continued for 200 years. For long 200 years, the suffrage movement continued in different part of the world. And in France, you remember that France was early democracy, but time and again democracy has come and gone in France. A number of time voting rights were given, then again taken back, but finally in the year 1946 French people were finally given the right to vote. Next, in liberalism in economic sphere. What does liberalism indicate in the economic sphere? It was freedom of the market and the abolition of the state imposed restriction on the movement of goods and capital. So during the 19th century, it was a strong demand of the liberal middle classes to end the state imposed restriction upon the travel of the travel or movement of goods and services from one places to another. So there were a lot of hurdle towards travel of goods and services from one place to another. There is an example in your book. Suppose for example in 1833, a merchant had to travel from Hamburg to Nuremberg. It had to travel through 11 custom barriers. In this 11 custom barriers, it had to pay 11 different kind of taxes in 11 different denomination and different currency, and also the weights and measure was different. So it was a very tedious process, and merchants were discouraged from trading in the goods and capital. And also the standard units were very different. Suppose an LA of textile brought in Frankfurt would get you 54.7 cm of cloth. In Mainz, another place, it would be 55.1, and similarly you go to Nuremberg, it would be 65.6 cm of cloth. So LA was the unit of currency, but it the weights differed from one place to another. The measure differed from one place to another. It was very difficult to calculate in this kind of tedious atmosphere. So in 1834, there grew a custom union under the leadership of Prussia and joined by most of the German states. It was called as Zollverein. The Zollverein abolished the custom barriers, reduced the currency from 30 to 2, introduced a system of railways for further unification and harnessing economic interest. This was Zollverein, a very important question. It was formed in 1834 under the initiative of Prussia and joined by most of the German states. So wave of nationalist sentiments grew in this point of time, and people decided to get united through Zollverein, and there were different areas who were incorporating the idea of Zollverein. Next, we'll move to conservatism. What is conservatism? Conservatism is a philosophy. It is a group of people with ideas that they do not want quick changes or rapid changes. They believe in the earlier form of society, and they wish for gradual changes over quick changes overnight. These were conservatives. For example, the Bourbon dynasty of Spain was a conservative family who was disposed by Napoleon, and after defeat of Napoleon in 1815, there was Treaty of Vienna in 1815. It is also called as the Vienna Congress. The Vienna Congress was hosted by Duke Metternich. It was an Austrian chancellor who was also the winning force behind the defeat of Napoleon. So the objective of Treaty of Vienna was to undo the injustice, undo the things committed by Napoleon, undo the changes brought about by Napoleon was the main objective of Treaty of Vienna. It was to restore the Bourbon dynasty of Spain, who had been disposed by Napoleon, and puppet regimes were instead were installed in its place. So in this Treaty of Vienna, the winning nation decided that there would be a series of states which would be set on the boundaries of France to prevent the further expansion of France. So the Kingdom of Netherlands, which included Belgium, was set up in north. Genoa was added to Piedmont in the south. Prussia was given important new territories, while Austria was given control of northern Italy. While the 39 confederation of German state which were established by Napoleon was left untouched. In the east, Russia was given part of Poland, and Prussia was given portion of Saxony. The main intention was to restore the monarchies which had been overthrown by Napoleon. That was the Bourbon dynasty of Spain. Next, we'll come about the features of this conservative regime set up after 1815. So, these were autocratic rulers. They did not tolerate criticism, and nobody could question the legitimacy of their kings. And censorship was imposed everywhere, from newspaper to songs and plays. Whatever was said against the monarchy, it was prohibited. First, it was a council of people or the censors who used to examine all the documents, and then only a play could be published. So French Revolution was very inspiring story, and it inspired the revolutionaries throughout the world. So one of the famous revolutionaries was Giuseppe Mazzini. Giuseppe Mazzini was born in Genoa in 1807. He founded two secret societies. One is Young Italy and Young Europe for the dissemination of his goal. Here, like-minded people like of Mazzini were admitted, and they fought in underground societies, hiding and conspiring against the monarchies, and coming out with the program. But he was not able to accomplish the goal of uniting the Italy, and he led a failed revolution. So Mazzini was regarded as one of the toughest enemies of monarchies, and Duke Metternich, the Austrian chancellor, as you would remember, said that he was the most dangerous enemy of the social order. So you can imagine how dangerous he was, and how fiery his speeches were, and how he fought for the unification of different states of Europe. So this is the end of the part 2. We will again come with the part 3. Thank you.